Is Nightreign a worthy follow-up to Elden Ring? Doom the Dark Ages is getting divisive, and the Switch 2 launches next week. I'm David Lum.
And I'm Sean Booker. This is Obvious Skill Issue, and each episode we're bringing you the latest news on games and game hardware, as well as a behind-the-scenes look at the biggest game events all year, and our first-hand impressions on upcoming titles. It launches tomorrow, but David, you and I have been playing Elden Ring Nightreign for the last couple weeks. You've played a lot more than me. I want to hear your thoughts on the game.
I've definitely been playing a lot more because Bandai Namco really wanted us to know what this game was about by setting us up with a lot of pre-release games, by which I mean throwing us all in rooms and discords to make sure that we could get the proper multiplayer experience, because it's a multiplayer-focused game. There's technically a solo player mode, and there's even a report today saying it's going to get a little easier, but the game is built for 3 players, and I had a heck of a time trying to make single player work. It's fun, it's hard, you know, but what's been your experience?
For those who don't know what Nightreign is, they've taken kind of the Elden Ring, the Souls-like formula, and they've turned it into more of a roguelike, a multiplayer experience. They've kind of fast-tracked it. So instead of a big sprawling 100-hour RPG, you're looking at kind of 45-minute sessions where you're kind of racing through the various maps or the states of the maps, taking on mini bosses as you get stronger, and then you're targeting a final boss at the end each time. As of this recording, I've only beaten 1 boss. How far into the game are you?
So I've beaten 4 of the bosses. That's out of 8 total that you can take on. I've tried the other ones and gotten my butt kicked a lot. And then beat the, so quote-unquote, final boss. This is From Software, so perhaps there's going to be more stuff tucked away or sneaked in. But I think of a game of this scope and scale, they really wanted this to be a sort of spin-off. It's $40, like it's not really that big. I don't know, I'd say I hit half of the content in the game, quote-unquote, maybe. But this game is so weirdly set up because you really do see a lot of the game when you do these runs that it's just the bosses.
I mean, I've only done 1 boss so far, and luckily I was with a crew who had kind of done it before, so they were pretty much shepherding it to me before, or through it, I should say. But I will say, like, the majority of my experience as I was traveling, I was playing this on my Steam Deck offline, has been solo, and you mentioned it briefly earlier. Solo play is so hard. I cannot recommend playing this game solo, because typically when I'm playing Elden Ring or I'm playing a Souls-like, I'm kind of taking it slowly. I'm fighting 1 enemy at a time because every battle could be difficult. But this one, they want you to just like be racing through it, and when you have 3 people attacking 1 enemy at once, you're just doing damage faster. It's quite a different experience. Like, so you did our review. What was your overall thoughts? Are you liking the game?
I like the game, but that's because I'm starting to become a From Software sicko. Like, I played Bloodborne, I played Elden Ring, but I really think this is for the fans, and fans who can find friends. There is going to be matchmaking in this game, but for instance, you can't really, there's no duos mode. You're going to have to go in as 3 or as a solo, or you matchmake to fill your team. So it's tuned to, as you said, like 3 people taking on not just all the enemies and racing through this map, you know, kind of like a race course, to hit these various, you know, you hit a church, you get a flask, you hit a boss to get upgrades, because you're really starting from scratch and building your character as you go. Distilling the Elden Ring experience to 45 minutes is exactly as you put it, the name of the game. So there is like a fun, what are we gonna do in this round, what's gonna happen element to it. But you really don't get a chance to slow down and see the sights, which I feel like is kind of a big part of From Software's juice. And I'm kind of sad to see that you have to go so fast that you can't even really experience it, and you're just kind of like in the flow.
Yeah, it almost seems like if you're not kind of doing an optimal run, you're not going to finish it. You're going to get trapped. Like, the circle's closing. I was running in a lot where I would come across like a mine or whatever, and I'm going in there and I'm slowly working my way through it, but then the circle closes around me. And when you're playing solo, at least, it kind of just respawns you a little ways away from, and then you have to do a corpse run. But then my corpse is outside the circle, so those souls are just gone. I just can't get that level back. So, but when you're on a team, like, you can revive each other and you can keep going. So like, yeah, no, matchmaking is super important, which that's kind of one of the knocks against it. It doesn't have crossplay.
Which is unfortunate. I think that's going to hold back a lot of players because, understandably, we're lucky that crossplay has gotten so big in that the network infrastructure, all these companies, is making it so that you can play from PS5 with your friend on Xbox, with your friend on PC. I just don't think From Software has all this lined up. But Nightreign also comes out for last-gen consoles, PS4 and Xbox One. So those generations can play with each other, PS5 and PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. But they just don't have that. And part of that I'm thinking is this sort of like super precise, can't deal with any sort of lag situation that is so important in FromSoft. If you have a millisecond of delay, that's getting dodging a boss's attack or getting wiped out by it. So I can understand their hesitance to try to play with, different systems working together over a complicated network. And, we played on a pretty light load. Who knows how the network's going to hold up to all these players, flooding it tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. And just for people to know, I think all of us here at CNET have been playing on the PC version, so we can't really speak to how the other platforms are working yet. But I'm hoping this is just kind of them like as a test bed for multiplayer. Like they've dipped their toes into multiplayer, but it's been very restrictive before, like only in this dungeon, no open world kind of stuff. So I'm hoping maybe if this does well for them, if they keep going with the multiplayer, maybe the next one they'll have crossplayer, they'll be able to expand further. They're a pretty savvy team. I would be surprised, but I want to talk to you about the characters. There's like
8. You start with 6. There are 2 unlockable. They're called Nightfarers, and they are a mix of... unlike regular Elden Ring, where your classes really just give you a set of stats to start with, the Nightfarers have a set of abilities, and they have a sort of a playstyle personality behind them. Some of them are pretty simple, and some of them can get really complex. The Wilder is a sort of sword and board it starts with, but with a grappling hook to get around, a sort of stagger ultimate, and a passive that lets you survive death once every time you hit a grace, like Site of Grace. That's pretty much every character's bread and butter, and we even saw some of the more advanced players sticking with it. It's just so easy to adapt that playstyle to everyone. But you've got your tank and the Birdman Guardian. You've got your high rogue DPS with the Duchess, which has an ability that lets you redo damage that was just done to an enemy that's super clutch. There's a spellcaster, the Recluse. There's a spirit summoning Revenant. It's really, you can find your playstyle if you want. Which did you sort of tend to, Sean?
Going off of like the previous Souls games, I like a sword, I like a shield, I like a faster character. I don't do heavy weapons. I'm just not good enough with like the timing to like make it count. I like being able to dodge. So I've only really played Wilder so far, and I did just unlock, I think it was the Duchess, and their description made it seem like they're a pretty fast character. So I was going to try them next, but then the servers went down as they got ready for the release. So that's probably next time I jump in, I'll try the Duchess. But I do like Wilder a lot, especially because it has the Lies of P hookshot in there, which is really great. It's almost like a free kind of stun because you can get off an attack pretty much immediately when you yank someone over. But you've played way more. You've probably touched a lot of the classes. So how are you feeling about them? What are you maining?
Yeah, for better or worse, I'm maining the easiest character to play, and that is Iron Eye. That is a ranged character that has a cool regular ability that lets you mark an opponent for which they take more damage. So you kind of got to get to melee range to do it. But it gets some iframes with that, so it's also a good dodge. And an ultimate with a huge AoE attack stun. But I'm really able to do that because I've had more experienced players tanking the enemy's attention, playing the Wilder, the Guardian, or the Raider. And so like team comp is super important. They had a tournament yesterday that was, Bandai Namco held a tournament with a bunch of streamers and veteran Souls players, and we saw a bunch of comps. We saw some, heavy DPS comps, double Iron Eyes. We saw, a standard sort of like tank and a couple DPS with a Wilder, and then Recluse, the spellcaster, which was doing a lot of damage because they have a really complicated but potent kit. And then there's another one we haven't talked about called the Executor, which is a sort of like samurai class that has an ability to pull out a katana and do some Sekiro-like parries, and then its ultimate turns it into a huge boss beast for a couple seconds. Nice. As you can tell, there's just a lot of variety in like how you can choose to play this game, but the most, it's not going to... There are some ways that are going to make it easier if you have a sort of tank versus DPS comp, but you can really do it with anything. And I'm excited for players to see how deranged they can get. If, you don't need a tank if you just bleed down the enemy real quick with a triple Iron Eye build, for instance, with, 3 bows going at it. But, that's up to players to sort of figure out. I think that's at least something that empowers the players more, since you're blitzing through this game so quickly. The important thing is dealing damage and killing bosses, so that you can get the little item boxes that pop out of them, to get better gear, to get stat upgrade, runes to upgrade your stats. And then there are some passives that you can unlock as well.
Right, so you actually interviewed someone on the dev team. Any kind of fun tidbits you want to tell us about that you learned yesterday?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I interviewed the director, Junya Ishizaki, who was combat director on Elden Ring and worked on a bunch of games. He actually worked on the original Dark Souls, and he holds that game pretty fondly in his mind, as something that really changed his experience. First big game, but also the From Software method. He has done combat in all these games, and that's why he wanted to do. He held his hand up when they were asking around the office for who wanted to make, these sort of smaller spin-off games in between the huge Elden Rings and Dark Souls 3s and et ceteras. The emphasis on combat is obvious, but he really wanted to make a lot of the sort of form and function very seamless in here. So for instance, when you jump off a high ledge, there's no fall damage, but your character kind of combat rolls in. So it's, this feeling of always having this momentum. And
Right.
when you move around this stage, you run to these spirit jumps and you leap up, and there's this sort of bass thud into it. And it's really engaging to play this game and run around the level, because I think there is that focus on combat. But this is a game that had a lot of development. There was fall damage at one point, and they took it out. Always envisioned this to be a smaller scope game, so this wasn't going to be like Elden Ring in scope. This wasn't going to have multiple levels. They originally envisioned this tiered system where you start out on Limveld, as it's called, which is a warped version of the Limgrave that we know from the base game. And they were going to have these multiple stages, changing levels, and eventually they were across multiple days. Eventually, they just wanted to collapse that into the same map so that players would know it very well, so that players would be able to use it like a race course, like we're talking about, to have dependable stuff, but recognize when things change a little bit, like the placement of camps, or the shifting earth sort of elements, where you can have a huge volcano and delve down into the bottom for a certain perk, or a tundra mountainscape. So, yeah, we a lot of work went into this game. But I do think that it's something for Elden Ring sickos like you and me. I don't know. I want to say it's for me, but basing by the streamers we saw yesterday, there are some real skill ceilings you can reach with this game.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to when the public gets their hands on it, so it'll be a little bit easier to matchmake. I can kind of just jump in whenever. I don't need to message people who's free. But I'm looking forward to playing a lot more of it, because I've just kind of dipped my toe in at this point.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a cool game, but newcomers beware. It's really hard.
I want to talk now about Doom: The Dark Ages. Since we last spoke, it's been out, people have been playing it, our reviews have gone live, our tip guides have gone live. I've played through the whole game, you did the preview of it. People seem kind of mixed on it. What have you been seeing out there?
Yeah, and I think there's understandably, because when I jumped in the preview, I was like, okay, well, this is a very very much slower game than 2016 or Eternal, and that is going to possibly rub players the wrong way. It's there's that big parry system. They're sort of standing your ground. What did you think, especially how it differs from Eternal, which was so fast?
I liked the pacing myself. To be fair, I knocked it down a difficulty because, as you know, I was just traveling. I needed to kind of get through it quickly, but I liked it. I really loved the shield charge of closing the distance. That felt really good. The mace was fun, and then, like you said, the parry system. I liked how you could equip different abilities that would activate based on when you do a parry. And my favorite was every time you do a parry, just a gun turret comes out of your shoulder and fires for a bit. That was pretty ridiculous. My go-to weapon, and I want to hear yours in a sec, my go-to weapon, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's whatever one destroys a skull and then you shoot shards of the skull. There's a second form of it that tightens the spread. so it shoots more direct. And I was just holding that down the whole time. That was extremely metal. What about you?
Nature, like lore-wise, flavor-wise, that gun rips. I love seeing it chomp up a skull and then fire out. But my preview was in a section of the game. I'm assuming it's the same, same preserved in the final one, but where you get this sort of like ball chain shot where you fire this wrecking ball. And yeah, it enables a different kind of play style, and just launching a ball like into an enemy and watching the game's like really gory, like, jibbing body explosion come out of it was super satisfying after, like the shotgun's always going to be fun, but being able to have like a projectile melee weapon essentially was a hoot.
I will say, so like my favorite part about the game is I liked the big open areas for a lot of the stages. I want to say like at least probably a third to about a half of the stages, you enter these kind of massive arenas, and there's like little secrets to find and corridors to go down and little unlocks all over the place. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a fun addition to the Doom formula. I really liked that. And then I'm kind of hit or miss on these, but both the mech section and the dragon section. Did you get to play any of those?
Yeah, my preview had a one of each, and I was also pretty mid on them. I was okay with the mech because it's just a change of pace and it's over pretty quickly. I thought the dragon sections were mid. They were just kind of super slow. I didn't feel like I was riding on a dragon with a lot of the sort of like rail shooter sort of gameplay they wanted to do. I don't know. What was your experience?
Yeah, it's definitely the most like kind of arcadey video game part where the dragon's like hovering there and then, dodge to the left. Dodge to the left. Oh, now shoot. Dodge to the left. Like it was goofy for sure, but I don't know. I kind of just liked the like visuals of both of those. Like it's not even like a dragon thing. It's some kind of like dinosaur beast that they've just like grafted metal laser wings onto, and so that was
sick,
just cool.
By the way. Incredible design.
Absolutely. Like this whole game was absolutely metal. And then similar to with the mech is. It was kind of formulaic, you do a couple punches, then you dodge, you do a couple punches. But I just liked the idea of these massive things just kind of walking through buildings, and you get like a huge chain gun and stuff. And so I liked the visuals a little bit more than the actual gameplay itself.
Yeah, and to be clear, like they sell the image and the idea of this, maybe not the gameplay is exciting, but like the sound in this game is unreal. Like everything crunches, all the bullets, all the shotgun sounds. Like I do feel that there's a lot of verisimilitude in a lot of the combat that you get into and the effects of it, which is preserved for the gameplay is most fun when you're running around as the Slayer, as the Doom Slayer. And that's the most important part, even if like the sort of side missions are less fun.
Speaking of the Doom Slayer, and I've shown you pictures and video of this before, but I brought a bit of show and tell for this episode because they sent me the collector's edition. And I'm showing it here now for everybody. This looks really nice, and I don't have the cape attached to it because it's kind of hard to get the cape to stay on it. But this thing is so cool. And another fun little piece is there's a steel book, and inside the steel book, it's not a game disc, but it's like the red key card. So I just have like a replica red key card, which is kind of fun. But I did an unboxing for this, and we got a few comments that I want to address. First on this one comes from Kolzicki, who said, "I got mine, ordered the PS5 version, and they gave me the Xbox version." That's messed up.
That's a bummer.
Sorry, dude. I don't tell you. Sorry to hear that. From C. Co. Tune, looks cool. How much did it cost? So people who are interested, I think this is called like the Collector Ultimate Bundle. It's $200 American dollars. So it's not cheap, but you get the game, you get some extra skins and stuff. So it's not nothing. And this thing's got to be like 13 inches tall. Like it's pretty sizable. Absolutely. Solidus wrote, the collector edition is exclusive to the US. I don't see it in EU countries. I wasn't sure about this, so I had to look it up afterwards. It looks like it is just North America. And then there was a reply there from Liam's who said it's been sold out for a number of weeks, but I believe it was available worldwide. I don't know if that's true, but it is currently sold out. I don't know what their plan is to bring it back, but it is a cool collector's edition. They sent it to me to show off. I wanted to show it off.
Yeah, super cool for super fans.
All right, I want to talk to you briefly about a bit of sadder news. Yesterday we got word, this was a report over from IGN, that EA has laid more people off. Specifically now, they've shuttered Cliffhanger Games, who was working on a Black Panther title.
Yeah, this is really unfortunate. Cliffhanger was made of a lot of Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War veterans.
Right, from Monolith
games
Studios.
from Monolith, which were incredible. Shadow of War, a little bit of same, but Shadow of Mordor was such a breath of fresh air and such a fun open world. A lot of mechanics and skills that I felt was going to be super well translated to Black Panther. Billion-dollar film, like really cool character, and to see it shuttered like this is such a bummer. And of course, such a disappointment to see even more people at EA laid off out of decisions to not go forward with a game that seems like if not a slam dunk, at least like a persisting and popular character with a team behind it that was very good and versed in open world stuff and open world combat. So. What a disappointment, man.
I mean, one of the real, outside of like the job loss, it's a bummer they didn't even get to ship a product. This studio was made for this game. This is their first game. It's been in development for 2 years. I will say, just as an aside, this isn't the Black Panther Captain America game that is also in development right now. That's with Skydance Studios. So there was 2 Black Panther games. Now there's just the one. But I want to read this excerpt from the reporting. An email from EA Entertainment President Laura Miele laid out these changes alongside with details about the layoffs, saying the changes were to, quote, sharpen our focus and put our creative energy behind the most significant growth opportunities. Which to me sounds like EA is just going to make football and mobile games.
Yeah, they're really circling the wagons. What are they doing? It's Skate, The Sims, Apex Legends, Battlefield, which, I don't know, those are dependable year-on-year titles, but what else are you doing? What else are you making?
I mean, they also own Respawn, but I feel like every couple months we hear about like more layoffs and yet another game getting canceled at Respawn. So
yeah,
EA seems like it's in a weird spot right now.
Unfortunately, I think, with a lot of the games industry, they're putting a lot of money into projects and just feeling like when they release them, they're not going to make back a lot. Unfortunately, I think even stuff like that, even stuff like Battlefield or the Sims or Apex that are these sort of games as a service are even undercutting their other games just sort of writ broadly because people are playing these forever games and they're not trying new stuff. I think that's like a sort of broad problem in the industry. If you have Fortnite and GTA Online sucking up a lot of player attention, and then maybe they will buy a few games outside of that. So, Respawn is still gonna come out with that third Star Wars Jedi Survivor game, which is good. I'm looking forward to that, but it's unfortunate that we saw the end of what would possibly be a Titanfall 3.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I remember reading this was a report from like last year or something. I can't remember who did it, but it was like 60% of gamers are playing like the same 6 games. It was something like that.
Yeah.
And it was, like you mentioned, it was like Fortnite, it was GTA, it's like Minecraft. And it's just harder and harder than ever to like pull gamers' attentions away, especially when a lot of these huge games, they're free to play. So, we've talked about this on this show several times with stuff like Marathon, with Arc Raiders. It's like if you're going to charge a price for this, you're almost shooting yourself in the foot because they're already so locked in. They already have all their skins in Fortnite. So I feel for the developers out there.
And it's a tough balance because we're talking about Elden Ring Nightreign, which is a $40 game, but it's multiplayer mostly, right? So it's how do you pitch like this specific game? Is it unique enough? We're going to see FBC Firebreak, for instance, from Remedy, that is set in the Alan Wake universe. That's going to be like I think a $40 or $50 game. It's going to be less expensive because they're going to, they're scoping it low, which is good. But even something last year like Concord, right, which is kind of the punching bag for a lot of these sort of ideas. Yeah, where it's like it did come out for cheap, came out for $40, but it was, that's different because it's a hero shooter, which is a tired genre, right? Will the same be said for Marathon when it comes out, since it's an extraction shooter, right? So I think there's such a case-by-case basis for a lot of these multiplayer games about whether they are exciting, unique enough, and their IP carries enough weight that players will come to it no matter what. Right now, players are going to come to Nightreign with a lot of the goodwill of Elden Ring. I'm really curious how they will come to FBC Firebreak, considering like Alan Wake and Control have such a different audience. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm rooting for all these games just because they offer something very unique, and every time something comes out that's like a 3-player squad trying to survive in a PvE, it's like one day we will get, you know, this Left 4 Dead dream again, and it's been since 2009, since Left 4 Dead 2 came out, when we had like, oh, everyone is playing this one, you know, squad-based thing. I don't know. I'm hopeful that these layoffs are just cleaning the plate. Hope, you know, for future projects, but we'll see if there's enough appetite for new things coming out, and maybe, you know, maybe it's just publishers need to really lower their expectations and lower scope of games, just like this, just like we're seeing with Nightreign and FBC Firebreak.
Next week, it's the big week. It's the week we've all been waiting for. The Switch 2 is going to launch. We've been doing previews. We've been getting ready. You recently had a preview. You went and played some Sega games. So tell me all about that.
I played a few Sega games, including Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Raido, which is a spin-off, Raido Remastered, which is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei. It's one of the Demon Detective series. I think it's the third game in that series, which is a PS2 era game that they're bringing back. And then Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. So this is a spread of games across multiple gaming generations, which I think is kind of cool because it means that Switch 2 players will have a bunch of strange games they either remember or never got to play. But, you know, this isn't all of, you know, Switch 2 launching with like all of today's best games, right? It's like, here's a spread. Here's a weird spread of interesting games.
So the 3 you played, those are launch titles, is that right?
2 of them are launch titles. I believe Raido is coming later. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 and Yakuza 0 Director's Cut come out launch day, which is June 5th.
So we were going to go through the launch lineup. Because I still think it's kind of a weird one, because if you haven't been playing these games on another platform, it's a great launch lineup. But when I think of launch lineup, I don't think of just what's available at launch. I think of what is kind of exclusive to this platform, like what is making me want to buy this platform day one. And the craziest thing is, there's like 1.5 games in that category. It's Mario Kart World, and it's that Welcome Tour manual thing.
They're really leaning on the third party, but I think that's a little bit of a breath of fresh air, considering how, and maybe this is just dating me, but I'm thinking back to like Wii U and GameCube, where the third party titles were so limited. Like we are finally in an era where we're getting some, and you know, the systems finally have some of the horsepower to play stuff like Cyberpunk or Civilization 7, which are pretty, you know, resource intensive, and hopefully shows how powerful the system can be. You know, it's not PS5 or Xbox Series X level, but it's something, maybe some last gen, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at this. I'm looking at this launch lineup. There's 21 games on here. I think we should just kind of pick out some of our favorites, maybe give some recommendations for the person watching this, and they're like, hey, what's good? All I have is a Switch 1, so I'm getting the Switch 2. So I'm going to start us off, and I'm going to say Cyberpunk is pretty enjoyable. You know, they fixed it since launch. That would probably be a pretty good one.
I think one that I played last year when it came out, but which would be a perfect Switch game, is Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess.
Yeah.
That is a nice, you know, sort of isometric / side-scrolling adventure, almost a tower defense sort of thing, but it's so flavorful, very feudal Japanese themed, monsters and stuff. It's going to look beautiful on that screen, and it's sort of perfect for the handheld. What's your next one?
I'm going to do Split Fiction. I mean, it's a Switch console, so it has the built-in 2 controllers already. Split Fiction, which came out earlier this year, is one of my favorite games of the year so far. So that is a no-brainer. If you've got someone to play with, get Split Fiction. Easy.
And it'll look beautiful on the Switch. We saw it playing at the Switch 2 preview that we both went to in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Don't sleep on Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. So we played it. We did a 4-player session with some other previewers, and that game lets you play both sort of traditionally at the Joy-Con, and you can flip it down in a mouse mode.
Okay.
I don't totally recommend this because it's a little more precise, but it's kind of fun. I mean, we all challenged ourselves to do it, and it works. It does work.
That is kind of my big question as we start to play the Switch 2, is it's like, I'll try the mouse mode every time. Like, I'll give it the old college try, but I'm curious, a year from now, is anyone talking about this?
Yeah, and I think Civilization 7 is probably the best game on this list to actually use it. But we'll see if shooters come out that'll actually use it, and how players like using it for shooters. I don't know. I feel like you need to move it with your whole kind of forearm in a way that you don't need to do it with computer mouse. But a lot of Switch 2 owners, families and stuff, they probably won't have a high-end PC or a different console in order to play shooters. So I think it'll be something like the mouse functionality can be a breath of fresh air and allow some gameplay that Switch 2 owners won't get elsewhere. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, let's do one more each. I want to call out the Hitman collection. This is the most recent trilogy, The World of Assassination. Those games are awesome. They're so good. They're weirdly funny. They're like subtly extremely funny, and those are just such really good games that if you haven't played the last trilogy of the Hitman games, do yourself a favor and jump in on the bundle they have here.
My next one is going to be the Bravely Default. I mean, it's an RPG, beautiful graphics. Like it's something that is going to be right at home on a handheld sort of situation. Beautiful graphics, beautiful art style. That's easy. Like for a system that's launching without a lot of RPGs, it's probably going to be your go-to. We'll see what else comes out. I think Fantasian is also going to come to the Switch too. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it came out on the Switch. But there's going to be a gap in terms of that. Well, it launches with Zelda's with upgraded Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But where is your if your sickos out there need your Xenoblades and everything like that. So
our next episode is going up after Summer Game Fest and the Switch 2's launch, so stay tuned for coverage of both of those in the coming weeks. And leave us a comment or question below on either of those, and we'll try and answer them next time.